to meet with him to discuss this further.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I joined the Prime Minister in paying tribute to Paddy Ashdown. He was elected to Parliament at the same time as me in 1983. He was a very assiduous constituency MP. He was a very effective Member of Parliament, and he and I spent a lot of evenings voting against what the Thatcher Tory government was doing at that time. I also, Mr. Speaker, agree with the Prime Minister on the point she made about intimidation of members of Parliament and representatives of the media outside this building, as happened a few days ago when the member for Broxtowe and Owen Jones of The Guardian were intimidated outside this building, and I send my support and sympathy to both of them. But we also have to be clear, Mr. Speaker, that intimidation is wrong outside this building, as it is wrong in any other aspect of life in this country, and we have to create a safe space. We have to create a safe space for political debate. You see what I mean, Mr. Speaker? I'm calling for a safe space for political debate.
Order, we've got a long way to go. The questions will be heard and the answers will be heard. No amount of heckling, no amount of noise will make any difference to that simple fact. Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, I also am sure the whole House would join me in wishing a speedy recovery to the 2 British soldiers who were injured in Syria last week. The Prime Minister scrapped the Brexit vote last month and promised legally binding assurances would be secured at the December EU summit. She failed. She pledged to get these changes over the recess. She failed. Isn't the Prime Minister bringing back exactly the same deal she admitted would be defeated 4 weeks ago?
Prime Minister.
Can I first of all say to the right honourable gentleman, I absolutely agree with him that there is no place for intimidation in any part of our society. Politicians do need to be able to have a safe space in which to express their opinions, many of which are passionately held. And I hope he will now ask his Shadow Chancellor to withdraw or apologise for the remarks that he made about the former Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. On the matter of Brexit that the right honourable gentleman has raised, perhaps let me update the House. The conclusions of the December European Council went further than before in seeking to address the concerns of this House, and they have legal status. I've been in contact with European leaders since then about MPs' concerns. These discussions have shown that further clarification on the backstop is possible, and those talks will continue over the next few days. But we're also looking at what more we can do domestically to safeguard the interests of the people and businesses of Northern Ireland. And that's why this morning we published a package of commitments that give Northern Ireland a strong voice and role in any decision to bring the backstop into effect. We've also been looking at how Parliament can take a greater role as we take these negotiations on to the next stage. And so I can tell the House that in the event that our future relationship or alternative arrangements are not ready by the end of 2020, Parliament will have a vote on whether to seek to extend the implementation period or bring the backstop into effect. And the Secretary of State for exiting the European Union will be saying more about this during his opening speech in the forthcoming debate.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, no amount of window dressing is going to satisfy members of this House. They want to see clear legal changes to the document that the government presented to this House. The Foreign Secretary said the Prime Minister has not been asking for anything new in her discussions with the European Union. She doesn't tell us. So doesn't that tell us that the Prime Minister has been recklessly wasting time, holding the country to ransom with the threat of no deal in a desperate attempt to blackmail MPs to vote for her hopelessly unpopular deal?
Prime Minister.
The right honourable gentleman can say what he likes about no deal, but he opposes any deal that the government has negotiated with the European Union. He opposes the deal that the EU say is the only deal, and that leaves him with no deal. The only way to avoid no deal is to vote for the deal. If the right honourable gentleman is uncertain about what I am saying, perhaps I can give him a tip. He might like to use a lip reader.
the Prime Minister says that it's the only deal available. If that is the case, why wasn't it put to a vote on December the 11th in this House? Why has there been a delay of 5 weeks on this? The Prime Minister said she hopes to get written assurances before the vote next week. So can I ask the Prime Minister this? Will the changes she is looking for be made to the legally binding withdrawal agreement itself?
Prime Minister.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, as I have said earlier in my remarks, and I've said previously, there are 3 elements that we are looking at. One is the undertakings and assurances we are looking for from the European Union, and those will be available. We intend that those will be available to the House before the House votes at the end of this debate. We are also looking at what more we can do domestically. I've set out, the Secretary of State will be clearer and more detail will set out what we're going to do in relation to the powers for Northern Ireland and in relation to the question of the role of Parliament for the future. And we are looking to ensure that we can provide the assurance and confidence that this House needs in relation to the question that has been at the forefront of members' concerns in relation to the backstop. But we've put a good deal on the table. Yes, we are looking for those clarifications which I'm sure will ensure that members of this House know that the backstop need never be used, and that if it is used, it is only temporary.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, in the midst of that very long answer, I didn't hear the words legal changes to the document. That was what my question was, Mr. Speaker. The Environment Secretary has said no deal would damage the UK farming sector. The Foreign Secretary has said that no deal is not something any government would wish on its people. The $4.2 billion of public money is being wastefully allocated to no-deal planning. Will the Prime Minister listen to the clearly expressed will of the House last night, end this costly charade and rule out no deal?
Prime Minister.
I've made it clear to the right honourable gentleman that if he wants to avoid no deal, he has to back a deal and back the deal. But he stands there and complains about money being spent on no deal preparation. So today, on Wednesday, he's saying we shouldn't be spending money on no deal preparations. On Monday, he said no deal preparations were too little, too late. He can't have it both ways. Either we're doing too much or we're doing too little. So perhaps he can break his usual habit and actually give us a decision. Which is it?
Corbyn.
This is the first time since 1978 that a Prime Minister has been defeated in the Finance Bill in the House of Commons. Last night, the House made it clear in supporting the amendment in the name of my friend, the member for Normanton, Pontefract and Castleford, that no deal should be ruled out. That is the position of this House. The UK automotive industry has written to the Prime Minister in December asking her to take no deal option off the table or risk destroying this vital UK industry. Given this House has now rejected no deal, will the Prime Minister protect thousands of skilled jobs in the automotive industry and others and rule out no deal?
Prime Minister.
Can I say I recognise that the right honourable gentleman welcomed the leadership that the right honourable lady, the member from Normanton, had given on the issue that he's referred to. I just want to be clear that the amendment does not change the fact that the UK is leaving the European Union on the 29th of March, and nor does it stop the government from collecting tax. But he asks once again about the question of no deal and about protecting jobs. We have negotiated a deal with the European Union that protects jobs. We have negotiated a deal with the European Union that ensures what is raising concerns, he says, is the prospect of no deal. It is absolutely sensible for this government to prepare for no deal, and those preparations are even more important given the position taken by the right honourable gentleman. With an opposition front bench that is opposed to any deal that the government negotiates with the European Union, it's even more important that we prepare for no deal. The deal protects jobs and security and delivers on the referendum, and he should back it.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, instead of backing industries in this country and protecting thousands of jobs in manufacturing and service industries, her Transport Secretary is awarding millions of pounds of contracts to ferry companies with no ferries to run on routes that don't exist, and apparently they won't even be ready by the beginning of April either. This is the degree of incompetence of this government in dealing with the whole question of relations with the EU. The Prime Minister has spent the last week begging for warm words from EU leaders and achieved nothing. Not one single dot or comma has changed. She's already squandered millions of pounds of public money on last-minute, half-baked planning for a no deal that was rejected last night. So if her deal is defeated next week, as I hope and expect it will the Prime Minister do the right thing and let the people have a real say and call a general election?
Prime Minister. They've all got their mouths.
No, we've put a good deal on the table that protects jobs and security. But I noticed in all of that we still don't know what Brexit plan the right honourable gentleman has. I was rather hoping as he went through that he might turn over a page and actually find a Brexit plan. Because what do we know about the right honourable gentleman? He's been for and against free movement. He's been for and against the customs union. He's been for and against an independent trade policy. He was a Eurosceptic. Now he's pro the EU. He wanted to trigger Article 50 on day one. Now he wants to delay it. He didn't want money spent on no deal. Now he says it's not enough. The one thing we know about the right honourable gentleman is his Brexit policies are the many, not the few.